Hi everyone, it's Melissa, and welcome back to another installment of Second Time's the Charm. This is a series I'm doing this year where I am revisiting books that I have previously either not liked or have DNF'd. And for this week's vlog, I am going to be reading The Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham. John Wyndham? That's probably how you pronounce that. This is a classic apocalyptic novel of the 1950s, I want to say. I started reading this in high school and I got, I don't know, maybe a quarter or a third of the way through it, maybe even farther, but I just didn't finish it because I think I was dealing with like a lot of assignments at the time, or I just remember having like no time to read it. So I can't remember if I disliked it at all. I remember being like a little bit bored and also lacking a little bit of motivation to pick it up, combined with the lots of, stuff going on. So I'm not sure. I feel like me DNFing it had more to do with being like busy and stressed than anything else, because I do tend to like apocalyptic fiction, and this is a classic, so like a lot of people like it, so I doubt I hated it, but I don't really remember much about it. I know it's about an apocalypse involving like killer plants, which are probably called Triffids. That's all I know about the plot, and I have like one image in my head, a scene that I must have read, where the main protagonist is like walking through a field of Triffids. Well, maybe he's not walking through a field of Triffids, he might be just like walking through other plants, but there's like some tension that like there might be Triffids around, but he's not sure. I just have this like image in my head of like him wading through plants, almost like someone in a cornfield type of image. And that's all I remember. So I'm going to be reading this over the next week-ish. And I thought this would be a good week to do it because I'm also doing some like gardening and yard work this week. And I thought like gardening, killer plants, like that might be a fun combo to like add that into my B-roll. But I've just been really, really busy this spring and summer. And so I haven't had time to deal with my like gardens, and my beds are completely overrun with weeds. Like, it's almost embarrassing because I feel like our house almost looks abandoned because the plant life is so like out of control. So yeah, I'm going to be doing a lot of weeding, and it's like getting towards the end of the summer. Well, it's midsummer, but like it's not optimal start your garden time, but I thought maybe I could plant at least a couple things to spruce things up a bit and not be so embarrassed by my front yard. So that's what we're going to do this week, and I will check in when I have read a little bit of the book. All right, so I am about a chapter and a half into this book, and I have thoughts. This is going to be like a mild rant, I guess. Not to say that the book is bad. I think it's written well enough. I think like it has that really great sense of foreboding and like tension building. It starts when the main character is waking up in the hospital and it's basically silent. He doesn't know what's happened. That stuff's all good. Liking it. The part where I'm just like kind of annoyed is well, it's rooted in ableism. So what's happened while this guy's in the hospital? So you don't really know what has happened to him at first, but he has like an eye injury and his eyes are bandaged, and he's been in a hospital, and today's the day they're supposed to remove the bandages. Earth had moved through this like debris field of like comet debris or something, and it created these like dazzling green streaks all over the sky. And so basically everyone in the world was watching this, except our protagonist, who, as I've just mentioned, has his eyes bandaged, so he can't see this like once in a lifetime spectacle. Everyone else in the world is looking at it except him, and presumably there are going to be some other people. These lights have blinded everyone on Earth. Like, not immediately, but everyone watched this spectacle, and then like a day later or whatever, which is when the book starts, everyone is blind. I don't necessarily have a problem with that in and of itself. You've had some mass disabling event. But it's like how it's handled it's so beyond. It's so beyond all logic. I mean, he knows it's like way late in the morning. He should have been checked on by now. He should have been given his breakfast by now. Where is everybody? He kind of hears some like noises, like shuffling in the halls, and like something's off. There's no traffic sounds outside. He knows something has happened. The way that people have reacted to being blinded is ridiculous. Not to say that this wouldn't be like a traumatic thing to be suddenly blinded, not to say that wouldn't be like a life-altering event in someone's life, but like everyone just goes immediately to ending their lives. Like, that's the reaction. And again, I'm not saying that there wouldn't be some people who couldn't cope. What I am saying is that I don't think every single person is just going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm blind, I guess my life isn't worth living. That's a problem in and of itself, because stereotypes for different disabilities do harm actual people who live with those disabilities. Also, in addition to that, it makes the book not make sense. Like, to me, this is like, it's so illogical. He's only talked to two other people, both of whom are blind. Everyone else is clearly blind because they're like groping around. They don't know where they're going. But the two people he's talked to have basically immediately decided to end their lives. He helps this doctor who like can't find his way back to his office, and he hears him and he's like, can you please help me? My office is this number. It's on this floor. So he helps him to his office. He tries to make a phone call. Lines are out. And his next move is to jump out the window. I kid you not. I kid you not. And I'm like, what? What? He doesn't try anything else. Like, he is struggling to find his office for who knows how long. He gets there, finds out that like something's terribly wrong. I guess I'll just jump out the window. What? And then the second guy, the protagonist meets, he goes to this like pub across the road, and this guy is getting like just absolutely drunk on purpose because he wants to end his life, but he's like lacking the nerves to do it. And then he's telling how like his wife and child, like his wife has already brought their child. I think she like filled the house, the upstairs with gas. He is basically saying how he's not as courageous as his wife, or he like lacks her guts, and so he's getting drunk so that he can like basically go join them in like this gas infested house. And I'm like, so rather than try to figure out anything, like how to live with this new disability, you just decided, well, I guess life's not worth living, so I will murder my child and take my own life as well. This is so unrealistic. Like, I am sorry. Not to say that if someone was blinded, they wouldn't like go through depression or be anxious or like have mental health problems. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I don't think people would like automatically jump to suicide that quickly. They haven't even given it, like, this happened over the evening, presumably, like everyone watched the spectacle and then they woke up blinded is what I'm assuming has happened. They haven't even given it they haven't even slept on it. They haven't even slept on it. They're just like, oh, I'm blind. I guess that's the end of like my life. Oh, like, I'm so frustrated with this. I said this is going to be a mild rant, and I guess it's not. This is like a severe rant. I'm like, it makes no sense to me. Like, you haven't even waited long enough to see if this is permanent. This could be, you could have been temporarily blinded by something. Like, that happens. It makes just no sense to me. Now, in the second chapter, he's gone back in time. He's giving you backstory to like the whole Triffids thing, which it seems that it was like a plant created in a lab. They can move, so they can like uproot themselves and walk. in a fashion. And they also have these very long, like, vines or kind of like tentacle type things that they can sting with. So they're like venomous. But, you know, they're not really a problem because you can trim the little venom stalk thing while they're like little saplings or whatever. And then you just keep it trimmed and it's like not really a problem. So people have like learned to live with these Triffids. So what I'm assuming is going to happen, I haven't finished that chapter yet. He's just giving the backstory of like when they first discovered Triffids and like all of a sudden they're all over the world and blah, 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 blah. What I'm assuming is going to happen now is people have coped with these Triffids because it was easy enough to go keep them trimmed and whatever. But now that everyone's blind, they're going to be, I think, sitting ducks, I guess, for the Triffids is where I'm assuming the story is going. So that's where we're at. I'm not hating the book. I'm not hating the book yet. Like everything else is fine. It's just this like blindness thing. The people's reaction to the blindness thing is just wild. I will update you on whether this book redeems itself. So I have finished Day of the Triffids and I am here to kind of give my final thoughts on it. I ended up liking it overall. If I'm going to rate this, I'd probably give it a 3.5 stars. And I'll probably just bump that up to 4 on Goodreads. I don't know. We'll see what I decide to do. I think it works as a piece of apocalyptic fiction. I think that element of it works really well. My main complaint with it is the ableism surrounding the blindness aspect. And there's also some like mild sexism. It was written in 1951 and it is very, very, very much a product of that era. Although I don't think certain aspects of the blindness was handled well, I think the premise is really interesting of this mass disabling event that's pretty much instantaneous, that almost everyone on Earth goes blind overnight, and then how society would have to try to rebuild itself after that, and the ramifications for those who are left sighted and their role in trying to rebuild society, and also like the ramifications for blind people and how they might be basically abandoned. While the blindness itself wasn't handled well and there's some ableism there, the in-book ableism I was okay with, if you know what I mean by that. Like when characters or like society at large is being ableist to the blind survivors, that unfortunately is realistic. Like we see this even now with emergencies where disabled people are abandoned, like left. So I think the aspects of the book where people are basically not trying to help the blinded individuals or are making excuses of, well, we can't save everybody, take a few people to rebuild society and like that's all we can do and it's not our fault and whatever. Like I think all of that rung really true, sadly. So the in-book ableism that was depicted, I think, was very realistic. The part that bothered me was the author's ableism and kind of ignorance, I guess, as to what blind people would actually be able to do or not do, how that would affect someone emotionally. But back to kind of the things I thought were done well. I thought like the pacing was really good too. There was just enough like kind of like action bits mixed in with the main character's like personal like inner reflections about what is happening and like the future for like potential children he might have and like what the world's going to look like and like what does this mean for everyone's lives. Like I think there was a good balance between those two things. And I thought it was a good survival story. So we have the Triffids who are starting to take over and become a real threat, where before they were just in people's gardens or they were like in nurseries and they weren't really that dangerous. Like they were potentially dangerous, but like we could handle them, and then suddenly everyone is blinded and these plants almost can like sense that people are vulnerable and can like escape the nurseries and like all that kind of stuff. So in terms of the survival story, you have that element of like the Triffids. Most of the book revolves around the human conflict. So trying to rebuild society, you've got different factions or different groups of people who want to do it different ways. You've got like scarcity of like resources and people worried about that, different ideologies around a lot of different things. And most of the book is concerned with that conflict. And that's my favorite part of like apocalyptic fiction, is not so much like whatever plague or environmental disaster causes society's breakdown, but like as society is breaking down or as it's trying to rebuild, what are people doing to each other? So that was the most interesting part, and it was where most of the energy was spent. But I think, again, it was well balanced between that stuff and also the like more immediate threat of the Triffids starting to like close in. So those are my main thoughts on the book. I think I would recommend this just with the caveat that there's going to be some very like outdated views. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, because I remember at the beginning I said that the only thing I really remembered about this book was the scene where the main character is like walking through like a cornfield or some sort of like field of plants. That never happens. That scene does not exist in this book. So I don't know what I was thinking if I just invented that. Maybe I'm mixing it up with another book. Anyhow, that doesn't happen. If you've read this book and have a better memory for it than apparently I did, please leave a comment below with your impressions of it. I would love to have a chat. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll chat soon. Take care. Bye.